across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. Oh, sorry, look at the state of me. Sorry, I was just rushing around trying to get everything done. I had to take one of the trees down, so I'm sorry about that. A very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course at midnight it is your chance to talk back. So what I want to talk to you about at midnight is basically what the country is now being told, and that is that we have to prepare for war. But not only that, we are being told that the price of freedom, we must be ready to sacrifice our sons and daughters to keep this country safe. France and Germany have now introduced voluntary conscription, which opens a door to making that non-voluntary. So I wouldn't be surprised if we followed suit at some point with voluntary conscription at the very least. So the question I want to ask you at midnight is, are you prepared to sacrifice your children to save this country? Because that is what you're being asked to do. That's what you're being asked to do. The French have said that if our country falters because it's not prepared to accept, let's be honest, to lose its children, to suffer economically because defence production will take precedence, then we are at risk. And it was pointed out to us today by MI6 that we're in as much danger as France and Germany are. Mark Rutte, head of NATO, has said we're not taking this seriously enough. So that's what I want to talk to you about at midnight. Are you prepared either to fight and die for this country, or prepared to sacrifice your sons and daughters to it? I've got a son. I can't even imagine doing such a thing. So I think it's a really interesting question. So please do get in touch. Let me know what you think about this. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. Okay, so that's what the phone-in is going to be at midnight. And I honestly, there's no right or wrong answer here. I just want to hear your thoughts on it. So do give me a call. Rest of the show, we've got John Boothman, the political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. He'll be going through the newspapers for an hour with me. We're going to be talking to Ryan Saby, the deputy political editor at The Sun, about whether Keir Starmer's days are numbered as a PM, or at least as leader of the Labour Party. We're also going to be talking about Bondi, so we're heading to Australia for that, to get the latest on Bondi, and also to ask, what are these new gun laws going to be looking like? And of course paying tribute to the hero Ahmed, who saved many lives by doing what he did and taking on that gunman. You will have seen the footage. It is absolutely breathtaking. So all of that is to come, but first, this evening, the Air Chief Marshal, Sir Richard Knighton, gave a speech at the Royal United Services Institute in London, where he focused on key defence and security issues. He called the situation, referring to threats posed by Russia of a wider war in Europe, more dangerous than he has ever seen in his long career. He believes that a response requires more than simply strengthening the armed forces, but the whole nation, that's you and me, need to step up. In a separate address, the new MI6 chief, Blaise Metroelli, said that Britain is already on the front line against Russia and that we should be ready for Vladimir Putin's export of chaos to continue with plannings of disinformation, sabotage and cyber attacks. But how do we step up? And what is being ready? What does that actually really mean to the likes of you and me, who perhaps are not old enough to be fighting, but we're going to have to do our bit? Are we prepared to do that? Joining me now is Sean Bell, who's a former fighter pilot and now military analyst. It's very good to meet you, Sean. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. First of all, a lot of people will be listening to this and thinking that this is scaremongering. This is nothing. We're no closer to a war than we ever have been in the last 80 years of the peace process. We're just not seeing it.
Yeah, good evening, Petrie. I think one of the reasons that Sir Richard Knighton has come out with these very strong words is exactly that. I think there is this sense that it's on a European continent, it's 1,000 miles away. Why should we be worried about it? And I think that's actually been matched in a way by the government. They did their strategic defence review. It concluded about 6 months ago. That's the vision for defence for the country for the next sort of decade. But vision without funding is hallucination, and the defence investment plan was meant to be the next thing that puts a money overlay on that. But of course, that's been delayed. And in the most recent budget, the Chancellor prioritised welfare over defence. And yet nearly every military guy I meet, some of them very senior, are getting increasingly concerned that this country is just not ready. We're underinvested, we're vulnerable, Russia knows it, and we seem to be very slow to do something about it.
I mean, a lot of people, again, would be saying, well, the military would say that because they want more money, they want more spending power, and they want fewer cuts. So, and a lot of people have said that to me when I've said, look, this is serious now, especially after the new strategy that came out of the US. Last week, the national security strategy that came from Donald Trump, that was the worst reading I'd seen for quite some time in terms of our future. So how would you answer that? The people would just say, well, the military would say that.
Well, I think the trouble is I go to Ukraine regularly on my own dollar, literally, because I do a little bit of charity work out there, but seeing firsthand the brutality of the war over there. And I think it's a really good case study, because if you go back, air power, let's just take air power, close to my heart, combat air, if you lose control of the skies, you get attacked from the air and the ground. Ukraine can't control the skies over it, and therefore it has been dragged into a grueling war of attrition that's been absolutely brutal against the people of that country. Now, in the World War II, we had 400 squadrons protecting our skies. Today, we're down to less than 10. And therefore, if we don't have ourselves properly defended, and with Russia on the front foot at the moment, it will be folly to dismiss that out of hand. We have some very seasoned military experts. I spend a lot of my time on operations, and the number one priority of any government is to protect its people. This is the most dangerous it's been for many decades, and we are singularly unprepared.
Mark Rutte, as well, has come out with some very strong language that we must be prepared to go through what our grandparents and our great-grandparents went through in Europe. And that, of course, alludes to the First and the Second World War. He's not pulling his punches, but where does NATO go with that?
Well, I think there's an interesting conversation here, Petrie. I mean, if you look back to NATO for the most of our lifetimes has been the guarantor of security for us, backed by the most powerful nation in the world, America. Now, we've seen most recently, since the Cold War ended 35 years ago, gradually, we've spent less and less money on defence, matched by many European countries. America kept its spending about the same. And that became increasingly difficult. Tensions with America have built as they see themselves providing that guarantee. Well, of course, Ukraine is not a member of NATO. Ukraine is on the European continent, and therefore America is increasingly seeing this as a European problem to address. And the challenge, of course, is that if Ukraine was to fall, it's pretty clear that Putin has got his economy on a war footing. He's raring to go. He's already putting drones and the like into parts of Eastern Europe, and therefore we've got to step up and do something about it. And I think that's why Mark Rutte is making such a clear statement. And although Rich Knighton's speech attracts attention for the word sacrifice, I think what he actually means is not just lives. He's talking about this is a whole of society enterprise that we are going to have to make sacrifices in terms of funding if we are going to properly defend these island shores.
Yeah, I mean, MI6, the new head of MI6 there, saying that we are in between peace and war already. that we are in this grey area where Russia is pushing the envelope. So we're not. She's even saying we're not actually in a peace situation at the moment, and we should be acting accordingly.
Yeah, and I think most of the intelligence, and let's be clear, when I was in the military, you get to see a lot more intelligence. I don't get to see that at all now. But I do trust many of my very senior military colleagues who spend a lifetime on operations, whether in Afghanistan, Iraq, or around the world. The last thing they want to see is us go to war. But war is not inevitable. I've got grey hairs. I've been around the block a bit. It's absolutely not inevitable. But historically, the best way to avoid war is to prepare for it, because your potential adversary then has to balance up the risks and the potential benefits. The stronger and more credible you are, the less likely it is somebody will try and take advantage. We've had 35 years of the Cold War dividend, massively under investing in defence of our island nation. That is coming home to roost, and that is why these warnings are so serious.
How are we going to get everybody to realise this is serious? I mean, I am of a vintage where I remember nuclear drills at school hiding under a desk, which I don't think would have done much good. But there was paperwork, there were leaflets, there were pamphlets, there were, prepare for this, do that. Are we going to start seeing things like that coming through, do you think, or is it too early to say?
I don't think we'll see things like that. I mean, unfortunately, I'm definitely old enough to remember the Cold War and living with that sort of omnipresent threat of nuclear war. And therefore, quite rightly, there were some public information videos out there. I don't think, personally, we're anywhere close to any nuclear confrontation. There is no benefit to anybody. You might remember, we used to call it MAD, mutually assured destruction. It's great to have nuclear weapons to protect yourself, but there's absolutely no benefit in using them. And therefore, I absolutely wouldn't want to leave anybody under the impression that we're on the verge of that. But Russia is feeling emboldened. Russia has invaded a sovereign country, and it is on the front foot. And quite frankly, it doesn't appear, despite all the positive words about the negotiation, I think it was MI6 that said they see no evidence that Putin wants to stop. No. And why would he? He's on the front foot and he's winning.
There were some movements today, though. There was a big meeting in Berlin. Of course, we're not privy to what has been going on in there, but it seems that maybe something has shifted. What do you imagine that would be? Because I can't imagine it's losing sovereignty of the land in Ukraine.
Well, one of the difficulties, you're quite right, it makes a lot of headlines, but unfortunately, Russia isn't at those talks. So this is all about trying to put pressure on President Zelensky to give more, cede more territory, make more concessions, in an effort almost to try and keep the Americans on the side. Yeah. I think President Putin will be laughing his cotton socks off at the moment because he's not involved in a negotiation. And until you do get involved in a proper negotiation, it's very difficult for President Zelensky to play his hand.
And we know where Trump stands, unfortunately, on all of that. It's been a real pleasure, Sean. Thank you very much indeed. Sean Bell there, former fighter pilot and now military analyst. Well, joining me here in the studio is Dr. Aditi Bala. I hope I said that right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Mental wellbeing teacher and psychotherapist. And the reason I wanted to talk to you is because how do you get your head around, as opposed to burying it in the sand, that we are in if not on the verge of war, but we are in a precarious position. We're in the grey area between peace and war, and we're all just ignoring it.
Yeah, it's a bit like the misconception of resilience, right? You've got to put on a brave face, you've just got to suppress it all, but that's not what it's all about. It's about acknowledging that, yes, there is something potentially going on, potentially possibly coming our way as well, and how do we prepare ourselves best for it, and how do we come back to a state of calm, a state of groundedness, in spite of what might be coming our way. So yes, acknowledging that it is a very, very scary time, it is a vulnerable time that we are in, but then preparing ourselves with that knowledge that yes, it can be scary, but if we can manage our own nervous systems, then we can navigate our own lives. So
it's interesting because you've got Mark Rutte and people like that who've got a lot more intelligence at their hands. They know more that what's going on than we do. But I always try to listen to and hear what they're saying as opposed to just going, oh, that's what they just said. And that is, we've got to prepare to be more like our great-grandparents and our grandparents, which there was a lot of sacrifice that the people of Britain had to make at that time, not only in family members, but in our own world, rationing, things like that. And I suppose after the First World War, the Second World War, people were more prepared because they'd kind of lived through it. But none of us have lived through any of that.
No.
It's 80 years. There are a few people who have, but the most of us have only ever known this world of relative peace.
Yeah, absolutely. And that thought can actually put you in a state of danger itself.
Yeah.
Right? Just that thought, pressing the panic button. But I think it's really important, we've zoomed out, we've seen that, yes, danger is coming our way, but how can we really zoom in into the small little bits, into the small little focus? Okay, something's coming. How can I prepare myself? What can I do in the now? What can I possibly do maybe in the next 24 hours, or maybe even shortened out even further in the 1 hour, in the 2 hours? And then what is going to help me prepare for the uncertain times, really? Yes, there are logistics. The money, the food, yes, all of that is there. And I suppose there will be some sort of guidance that, our government possibly will lay down for how, as you mentioned, the rationing and all of that, yes. Yeah. But how do we actually take care of ourselves? How do we, stay still, stay stable in the times of distress, in the times of... Yeah.
For me, I'm a bit of a natural control freak. And so... That's probably why I do this job, the strict times, the strict, all of those things. I love all of that. I work well within that. And so, there's a case where I've got a wind-up radio, for example, somewhere in my cupboard under the stairs, but it's there. I know, and I've got a power bank, a solar power bank, somewhere again in the back of the stairs, but I know it's there. So it's things like that make me feel, I hope I never have to use them, ever. But they're there just in case. I'm a plan B and a plan C type person. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Just doing what makes you feel like you've got a little bit more control on a situation that none of us have got any control in?
Absolutely. Look, I think our mind can really spiral down really quickly into the what ifs and the worries of the future. It's not really our fault per se. That's how our brain has evolved evolutionary. It's designed to detect danger, and yes, danger is coming, but it's not come yet. Now, how can we prepare ourselves into sort of sieving through what's real danger right now versus what could come? Yes, prepare for that.
Yeah.
Maybe pack away stuff that you need to pack away.
Yeah,
yes.
I hope I never got. My son will find it in 30, 40 years' time and laugh at me. But I'd rather have it than not.
Yeah. But also be aware, be mindful that you're not there yet.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So you don't want to be missing out on the important time right now where you are actually safe. So really acknowledging that yes, there could be danger, but right now I am safe. Right now, what can I do to keep my well-being going? What can I do to keep my mental state in a way that it remains calm and grounded so I can navigate these tough times?
It's a really difficult thing to ask our minds to do, isn't it?
Yes.
Really, to prepare for the worst but live for the best.
Yeah.
In a way, it's counterintuitive.
Absolutely, because it is counterintuitive, but also then we are letting our emotions and our brain run the show. Whereas when we acknowledge and we accept that this is what's going on, then we've got some sort of control. If you look at it,
I'd rather see it coming than be blindsided.
Yeah.
That for me anyway, and that's why I wanted to. I'm constantly looking at Ukraine. It's my geekdom is wars. I've been a war reporter, so all of those things. I'd rather know what's around the corner than be blindsided. But a lot of people go, I don't want to know. I just when it happens, I'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
But that can't be good for crisis management.
No, it can't be good, definitely not. And that's where that acknowledging and that understanding is. So yes, if you feel that it's really overwhelming to connect with the news or, to connect with the reality and it's really letting you spiral down, maybe connect with the people who are connecting. So suppose, maybe you have a relative who doesn't, who possibly says, no, I don't want to know. So maybe they can connect with you, and find that safety in the community, because not everyone's strength is actually connecting to the danger right now. Maybe their strength is something else.
I've got so many friends, Eddie, that just do not look at the news at all.
Yeah.
At all. And they're my mates, but they're not interested in current affairs, they're not interested in anything that's going around, because what they can handle is their world.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's the problem.
Well,
that we need to be a bit more expansive.
I think we have to acknowledge that everyone's nervous system is very different. And also we come from different parts, but our brains are essentially built for catching danger. So once this comes in their radar, of course, who are they going to find in their community? Or people who've got more knowledge, because we were never meant to, thrive or evolve in, alone. We were meant to stay in communities. So yes, there is a downside to it, like with everything, but I suppose we also have to look at what can this person's nervous system handle. Yes, for me personally, be prepared for the worst, but also don't lose sight of what is happening right now is really important, because that's the way I can stay calm and grounded in the now. But then I'm ready. I'm ready that, okay, if something comes, then yes. But then it's a very fine line, letting yourself spiral down into things versus, okay, something's coming, I'm prepared for it, but I've got this to deal with right now.
Yeah, that's a very sensible advice. Dr. Aditi Avala, thank you very much indeed for joining me. A mental wellbeing teacher and a psychotherapist. So no panic, but just know what's coming. That's all I can say. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, I want to talk in the Talkback hour. I want to talk to you about what we're being told at the moment. And this is the MI6 has declared a shadow war with Russia, that we're already in that sort of grey area of war. We're not in peace anymore. And Britain must be ready to sacrifice its sons and daughters to defend itself from Russia. the Chief of Defence Staff has warned. In a chilling prediction of what it might take to deter a full-scale conflict, Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton said, "More families will know what sacrifice for our nation means." Really strong words, and this is echoed by French General Fabien Mandon, who sparked fury across the Channel last month by saying that France lacked the will to lose its children. General Mandon, France's top officer, accused his countrymen of lacking strength of spirit to accept suffering in order to protect who we are. He said, "If our country falters because it's not prepared to accept, let's be honest, to lose its children, to suffer economically because defence production will take precedence, then we are at risk." So again, really strong words. Mark Rutte, head of NATO, saying that we've got to be prepared to suffer the way that our great-grandparents and our grandparents did, not just in losing people, but in other sacrifices that will have to be made if we were ever to be on a war footing. So definitely the rhetoric is ramping up. The question I wanted to ask you is, are you ready to sacrifice your children in defence of Britain? I just can't see it. The world has changed. In the last 80 years, when we have been at relative peace, we've just not had to acknowledge it. We've just not had to look at the idea of war. So I don't think anybody's prepared. I don't think anybody is willing to sacrifice anything. But you could prove me wrong, if you like. Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you on this. 0344 499 1000. And you can text the word talk and then your message to 87222. There is no right or wrong answer here. I just genuinely want to hear what you think about the suggestion that we should be ready to sacrifice our children to protect our way of life. So do give me a call. Here at Talk, we are welcoming in the new year by giving away a massive £26,000. You may be thinking, why 26,000? Why not 30? Well, because it is 2026, and somebody in marketing spent a long time on that. So it's 26 grand that you could potentially win. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway, and it could be yours. Well, for your chance to win, you need to text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 423 9761 0343 423 9671. Lines close at 12 p.m. on January the 9th, 26. That's when you'll need to answer your phone. If it rings, you've got to be in the UK and over the age of 18. This is a network promotion, full T's and C's at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Good luck.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. Well, Australia, of course, is waking up to the latest news on Bondi Beach. It is an extraordinary time where we saw those images. We saw them on Sunday evening here in the UK, where those two men, the two shooters, decided to kill innocent people, innocent Jewish people, to be more specific. Well, last night, our lunchtime here, members of the Jewish community took part in an impromptu menorah, a lighting ceremony to celebrate the second night of Hanukkah and remember the 15 people murdered on the site. Well, joining me now live from Sydney, a Sydney-based journalist and host of the Briefing podcast is Sasha Barbagat. A very good evening to you, Sasha. Dark times for Australia. I know Bondi well, having been a backpacker, and it's unimaginable that an area like that would see this kind of violence.
Yeah, good evening, Petrie. Look, I think that is the hardest thing with what's been going on. And as a Sydney-sider and Sydney-siders together, we're struggling to kind of marry up the vision of Bondi, which is this place where people gather to, you know, enjoy the beach, enjoy the sunshine. It was a beautiful, warm afternoon. Bondi has a very proud Jewish community. They were there celebrating the first night of Hanukkah. And to see it reduced to what it was on Sunday night has been really hard to grapple with as a Sydney-sider. And I think last night's vigil was a really important show of how we're trying to, you know, have the lightness come through the darkness from this, because, yeah, people are grieving and you can sense it on the streets as well of Sydney. It's definitely a somber mood at the moment.
It's the shock, isn't it? When we've had terror attacks here in London particularly, the shock, the waves of the shock go on for quite some time.
I think in Australia as well, we're quite protected from events like this. Sydney had a stabbing at a shopping centre last April that had a similar impact to this one. But before that, I mean, we're pretty safe down here, and I think Australians really identify with that as part of our identity, is that Australia's a safe place to be, Sydney's a safe place to be. And you're right, having something so violent happen in one of the most beautiful places in the world, and to happen to people and members of our community, has been really hard to grapple with. And I don't think people can grapple with it. They're not marrying the two up together because it's just so against what we stand for as a country.
One of the reasons that Australia is considered a safe country is it already has quite strict gun laws, but there are some gaps that are glaring now in those gun laws. But your PM is saying no, we've got to tighten this even further.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, convened an emergency meeting yesterday afternoon, our time, with all of the leaders of the states and territories. Now, Australia, our states don't actually speak to each other when it comes to gun laws. There's a lot of separation between the states, you might be surprised to learn. So they've all agreed to come together to tighten our gun restrictions, which we haven't actually done. We haven't done it on this scale since 1996. There was the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania there, and that was, you know, huge at the time. And the then Prime Minister made some big changes to our gun laws. Now they're looking at tightening it, so not letting anyone who's not an Australian citizen hold a gun license or purchase firearms, you know, a bunch of other things. The limit on how many guns people can have. We know that one of the shooters had 6, and there's been questions around how he was actually able to obtain those, given that ASIO, which is our security watchdog, had actually been investigating his son for possible terror links. So there are big questions that need answering, and I think the Prime Minister and the state ministers are hoping that this goes away to addressing some of those concerns. But I mean, it does go further than that. You know, unfortunately, there's questions around how the Prime Minister's been handling anti-Semitism in Australia, and, you know, the opposition has been jumping on that as well. So still plenty more to come out of it, I feel.
It's interesting, isn't it, to see the difference in America and Australia and the UK. When we see something like this, we immediately are driven to making those gun laws tighter. Will the Australian people be with the Prime Minister with wanting to tighten these laws?
Yeah, I don't see any sort of opposition. Sure, I mean, there are people who might have their noses out of joint about certain aspects of these reforms, but as Australians, generally speaking, we're pretty anti-gun. Most of us have never seen or held or been near a gun. So the idea of stricter gun laws means very little to most people, especially people in the inner city, people who live in the suburbs. Obviously, it's a different story for our farmers and for people who hunt and who shoot recreationally. But in terms of the everyday Australian, most of us have never even been near a gun. So the idea of stricter gun laws is no skin off our nose, because we don't deal with them. We don't want people dealing with them because it scares most of us, to be frank.
I don't want to finish this conversation without talking about the hero, the Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who, the extraordinary footage that we've seen over here, the 43-year-old fruit shop owner who risked his life. I mean, completely risked his life in an extraordinarily brave move. What are people thinking about him and other Muslims in Sydney at the moment?
Ahmed Al-Ahmed has very quickly shot to hero status. He is, being looked after by lots of members of the community. He's actually currently in hospital, and the state premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns, went and visited him yesterday to speak with him about, his incredible act of heroism. And I think a lot of people are hoping that that's the shining light that we can put out to the world as well. This has gone viral. People are paying attention to the senseless tragedy, but also to the everyday heroes like Ahmed, who came forward and ran into the face of danger to save other people. And we know that he saved lives by his actions. So he is recovering. He has undergone surgery. His family is keeping the media up to date in terms of how he's traveling. And so, yeah, we pay tribute and we pay respect to him. He's an incredible man, and we're really proud to have him as an Australian.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the kind of bravery it took for him to run at a man with a gun is absolutely extraordinary. There was a second hero as well, though, we're not hearing quite so much about. Has that been disproven?
Oh, which one's this, Petrie? I'm not aware of this one.
I thought there was another guy who went to somebody else near a bridge.
There was a man who ran up. So there was a bit of confusion immediately following when the shooters were taken down on that bridge, and a man ran up to try and disarm him, and police actually mistook him for being involved. Yeah. Luckily, he was okay. But yeah, I mean, as I'm sure aware, when an event like this happens, there can be a lot of, especially with everything being filmed these days, you're seeing the footage and it's coming out and you're kind of trying to piece it all together. But we saw so many acts of heroism and bravery on that day, people shielding children that weren't their own, people who were confronting the gunmen from a distance, and, surfers who were getting their boards and helping transport the wounded. So wow. That was the of Australia, as far as I think most of us are concerned.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me, Sasha. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Sasha Barbagat there, Sydney-based journalist and host of the Briefing podcast. And it is interesting, isn't it, to look and see the heroism. I cannot imagine, if you've seen that footage of Ahmed Al-Ahmed running, I mean, it is just, you have to ask yourself, I think everybody asks themselves, would I be brave enough to do the same thing? Quite an extraordinary feat of bravery. And he, like I said, he's in hospital. There has been a GoFundMe page which people have been sending money into from all over the world. And the latest, I think, was they got $1.5 million Australian dollars waiting for him, which is around about £750,000. But that amount of money is going up and up, as indeed it should, because the footage is, I mean, it just makes you hold your breath. It's extraordinary. What a brave guy. Well, joining me now live from Bondi Beach is Isabel Rowe, journalist and presenter for ABC News. And as I said, Isabel, thank you so much for joining me. You are live on Bondi Beach currently.
Yeah, I am, with a lot of members of the community. I don't know if you can see behind me, but we're waiting for the Israeli ambassador who's going to come and speak here. It's the first time that they've been down to this site. This is a vigil which has been set up. There's a growing flower tribute. It's just outside the Bondi Pavilion, which is right on the main front area of Bondi Beach. Lots of people who've been to this part of the world will know it. And people are coming down here from around Sydney just to lay flowers, to take a moment. There's occasionally spontaneous breaking out of song and prayers, which gives a pretty sombre atmosphere. And a lot of the shops around here are closed because the street remains closed. So really, if you're in this area, it's to come and pay tribute and join in some of the mourning that's going on.
And of course the original Hanukkah celebration that turned into being a violent disaster area, that was mainly populated by Jewish people. But this, I imagine, is from people across all communities wanting to show support to the Jewish community as well as Jewish people themselves.
Absolutely. Bondi is an area where lots of Jewish Australians live. It's one of the highest, if not, I think, the highest population of Jewish Australians in the country live here. But Bondi is also a place where tourists come, where so many people come from around the world. And of course, there is a lot of locals. And there were a lot of people here on Sunday night when this tragedy unfolded, a lot of people who ran for their lives, who had to take shelter. And so people are still coming to terms with what they had to see and hear and experience that night. So there are people coming from everywhere, and it's not just here. I mean, yesterday we saw reports of people queuing for hours outside blood banks in Australia because there had been this call for blood donations. Never before have we seen so many people queue up to give something, and that's, I guess, a practical thing that people have felt they've been able to do in a time when often people feel like they're quite helpless.
Because aside from the 15 that were brutally cut down, there are many still in hospital, some critical.
That's right. I think there are about 29 people remaining in hospital this morning. About 9 of those are in critical or a critical but stable condition. So still a lot of medical work happening, still people who have bullet wounds. Even the hero, I heard you talking about him just before, Ahmed, the man who ran in to take hold of that gunman and wrestle the gun from him, he also has bullet wounds. He's in surgery and is having several surgeries in one of our Sydney hospitals at the moment. The Premier's been to visit him to see how he is. So there is still, a lot of people being treated at different hospitals across Sydney.
And aside from the obvious shock and distress that the Jewish community is feeling currently, how do they feel about their safety going forward? I know that the PM has had some criticism about not taking anti-Semitism seriously enough. Is there anger there too?
There is extraordinary anger. It is something that people have said they are not surprised about. They are shocked and they're saddened and hurt. But a lot of people have expressed this sentiment that they could see this coming, that they believe that anti-Semitism is something that has taken hold in Australia. They say that they don't feel safe necessarily anymore. It's a common practice in this part of the world to have Jewish security guards privately conducting security at a lot of Jewish schools in this area, at synagogues, even around some of the areas where lots of Jewish people live. That's normal in this part of the world. It's the sort of thing that now people are saying, well, we don't want to have to do this. We don't want to have to live behind gates like this. But this is what Jewish Australians say is the reality, and they use what happened on Sunday as an example of why they believe they are not safe.
Well, Isabel, thank you so much for joining me, and do send our love from London to those of you in Sydney. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Isabel Rowe, their journalist and presenter for ABC News, who was live on Bondi Beach. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And, you know, I've always said to you before that when anybody in politics denies, I always see lies. But there we go. Keir Starmer's facing a fresh leadership coup chaos as Andy Burnham close to a deal to fight the by-election. He denies it. 100% not happening. So let's discuss this with Ryan Saby now, who is a deputy political editor at The Sun. Deny. We keep hearing it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Andy Burnham has been very, very clear to try and sort of distance himself from a lot of these rumours and stories from over the weekend. But I did notice that his tweet said quite a lot of rubbish has been reported in the papers yesterday. That's why he says that he got out of Westminster. Now, he said quite a lot. He didn't say everything. He said quite a lot. So I think that is one thing to point to and sort of look towards his route back to Westminster and a potential route to Downing Street. I personally think it could be quite difficult because, first of all, he's got to be selected as a candidate. Now, that may not be easy because some seats, some constituencies don't like someone being foisted upon them for whatever reason. Now, I think the second point as well is that it's not going to be an easy win any constituency at the moment, particularly for Labour. Just look where they are in the opinion polls. Reform, and I wouldn't even say hot on their heels. They are streaking ahead of Labour. So it's going to be very, very tough. And just look at what Reform would do in a by-election like that. They would throw the kitchen sink at any seat that Andy Burnham stands in. So it's not going to be easy if he thinks it's a simple route back to Westminster. It's not.
He would also have to vacate the Manchester mayoral seat, which Reform could then take, and that is a risk that Labour surely wouldn't want.
Yeah, that's right. I think there probably is a scenario where he can hold both Greater Manchester Mayor and a Westminster seat. I think Boris Johnson did that, I believe, for a short while. So I don't think that's sort of beyond the realms of possibility. But as you say, if he does vacate that, Reform will look at that. They'll be licking their lips and think, I'll tell you what, we've taken council seats, local councils up and down the country. We actually fancy taking a big mayoralty with a big budget, looking after big things, big projects, big infrastructure projects in Greater Manchester. And that will show the public, if they succeed, it's just another step towards what Reform see is their route to Downing Street. So there's lots of people who want to get there. But you can sort of see that path that could emerge for Andy Burnham and could also emerge for Reform along the way.
But Andy Burnham has made no secret of his ambitions. I mean, he's been, dreaming of being Prime Minister probably since he was 10 years old, and he's certainly not. He's not going to stand by Keir Starmer if it means that he doesn't get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. You look at what happened before the Labour Party conference back in September. He was making so much noise about wanting that leadership, or if a position became vacant, he would be available for that. And just last week, he was being interviewed about the potential for, if the position became free, he'd have another tilt at it. So he hasn't made any secret of that. Now, the big difficulty is, I say, that he needs to actually get to Westminster. And if things happen sooner rather than later, he could find himself sort of outside the tent, where you have people like Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, you have the former Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, who are already in place. Now, I think at the moment, you would look towards those two and people within the House of Commons who are going to be who are big favourites for that. So I think the longer this kind of scenario lasts and the longer that Sir Keir Starmer lasts as Prime Minister, probably the better for Andy Burnham, because it just buys him a little bit more time for him to try and win that seat back.
Yeah, I mean, the chances are, though, that if I was Andy Burnham, I'd be looking longer term as well and thinking, well, I might as well make that shift to Westminster anyway, because, we know that leaders don't last very long. It will become the next election. If somebody gets in, let's say in May, say it's Shabana Mahmood or it's Angela Rayner, they're going to take all the flack that Labour has failed on. Maybe he'll be in position to take over come the general election.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be very, very difficult for anyone who takes over from Sir Keir Starmer. Mainly, one of the key reasons, and it comes up every single time that we have a change of Prime Minister within a Parliament, within that sort of 5-year term, is that the other side, whether it was Rishi Sunak, it was Keir Starmer against Rishi Sunak, all Keir Starmer had to do to Rishi Sunak was say, well, you have no mandate. Yeah. You were not elected by the people of this country. Just look what David Cameron did to Gordon
Even though we don't vote for a Prime Minister in this country, but they still always say that.
They always say that because it wasn't Rishi Sunak, it wasn't Gordon Brown who themselves won that election. They weren't the ones with their name above the door or the name on the signature on the party manifesto. So that's would become a difficulty. And then it just looks a bit odd if you go from Keir Starmer to another leader to then Andy Burnham, who would fight that next election. It's very strange, just like the Tories found out. Yeah. You have 3 prime ministers within a parliament. So it gets very complicated, and then the public just lose patience with you. And I think if you are changing prime minister 3 times within the parliament, I think you just hold your hands up and say that it's time to hand over to someone else, because it's very difficult for the public to sort of buy in and take that.
Well, also, I tell you what, we're all just so fed up with this. Westminster infighting. They're supposed to be doing a job, and they're not doing it if they're fighting. Look, just before I let you go, on one of the front pages for tomorrow, there's a little flag on the eye, I think it is, saying Polanski would work with Labour, and we are going to start having to see these sort of coalitions, aren't we? That he's saying that to fight off reform, but even reform itself is going to have to, they're all going to have to start making friends with each other, aren't they?
Yeah, because this is what's so fascinating about the next 3-4 years in British politics. Before, Labour versus Conservatives was either going to be one or the other, maybe a little bit of a coalition along the way. Now, no one can predict what's going to happen in a general election, because you've got 5-6 parties vying for some kind of power. Now, I think the interesting thing is, who's going to sign up to an electoral pact or a non-aggression pact quicker? Is it going to be on the right? Is it going to be the Conservatives and Reform? Or is it going to be on the left? Is it Labour, the Lib Dems, Greens, your party? Who is going to come to some sort of agreement? It's either going to be a formal agreement after a general election, or actually it's going to be those parties not actually standing against each other in certain seats, and if they do, not putting any resources into it. So that's why I think the next few years is going to be incredible to see who can get into bed with each other the quickest, and actually sort of sign on the dotted line. Now, they're all holding back because none of them want to say our manifestos are going to be watered down. But let's just see, because once people get that sniff of power and they think they may be getting a cabinet post, things can change and things can turn on their head. So let's just wait and see.
Like rats up a drain pipe. That's what I'm going to say. Like some really dodgy carry-on movie from the 60s. It's all going to happen. I will be there to watch it and report on it. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. Ryan Savey there, who's a Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Coming up at the top of the hour, we are going to be looking through the newspapers. So the newspapers for tomorrow. And this, I have to say, is my mate Timmy's favourite part of the show because he loves the news. So he'll be watching with bated breath, and I hope you'll be joining him to do just that. John Boothman joins me in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course at midnight it's your chance to talk back. And I'm really interested to know what you make of the latest comments that we're hearing coming from Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton when he was talking at RUSI earlier, and also the new head of MI6, which a test for spies overseas, right? So they know what's going on overseas. A chilling prediction of what it might take to deter a full-scale conflict with Russia. The Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton said more families will know what sacrifice for our nation means, and Britain must be ready to sacrifice its sons and daughters to defend itself from Russia. France is saying the same. The French general Fabien Mandon, who sparked fury across the channel by saying that France lacked the will to lose its children. He said that lacking strength of spirit to accept suffering in order to protect who we are. He said if our country falters because it's not prepared to accept, let's be honest, to lose its children, to suffer economically because defence production will take precedence, then we are at risk. More people need to be ready to fight for their country. Delivering his annual lecture, this is the Air Chief Marshal, Sir Richard Knighton, said one of the senior roles, said sons and daughters, colleagues and veterans will all have a role to play, to build, to serve, and if necessary, to fight. He said Britain faced the same threat as Germany, but noted that Berlin has brought in national service and was outspending Britain on defence. But Germany and France have brought in a form of national service. At the moment it is voluntary, but they are opening the door to that being a permanent situation if not enough people volunteer. So other countries are stepping up. Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, has said that we must be prepared to go through what our great-grandparents and what our grandparents went through, and that is the First and the Second World War just. So are we prepared to lose our sons and daughters to defend this country, to defend this way of life, to be part of the defence of Europe? Because obviously we're part of NATO. If any of the other countries in NATO are attacked, we don't have to, but we will join in the defence of those nations. So that's the question. Are you prepared? What sacrifices are you prepared to make for this country? Are you prepared to lose your sons and daughters in defence of the way that we live? 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do phone you straight back. And you can text the word talk and then your message to 87222. Joining me now to discuss this and, of course, the front pages, it is the fabulous John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, wonderful as ever to see your little face. Thank you for joining me. The tough talk now we're hearing out of Europe. We're hearing, you know, not only MI6, not only the Air Chief Marshal, but Mark Rutte, you know, France, Germany. Everybody is now starting to talk a bit tougher than we are here in the UK. What do you make of what's being said?
I heard you use two words there, which I think are very important words, which really haven't been part of the debate in this country in the past period, when we've been hearing all these warnings, not the first time, for the first time, and those were the words national service. And I wonder that this might start to become part of the national debate in Britain. Again, I know it's a different area, but you know, we hear an awful lot about young people and the number of young people not in education or employment. But you know, I heard another military figure earlier today in Times Radio, former Deputy NATO Supreme Commander General Sir Richard Sheriff, saying that the western part of Europe, until now, has had its heads in the sand in relation to the threat of Russia. He said the eastern part of Europe, and I think he meant from Finland right down the way, you know, countries that were partly Soviet satellites in the past. And you know, the northern countries, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland.
Yeah, those closest to the landmass of Russia.
He was basically saying they get it, but the rest of Europe doesn't get it. And the other thing that has to be pointed out, given the economic situation the country finds itself in, that's the UK, is we've been talking big and talking tough in the past couple of years about increasing defence spending, but it's kind of increasing the defence spending at some time to come, rather than necessarily ramping it up now. So on the one hand, you've got military experts talking about the possibility of a war with Russia in 5 years' time, and the sort of timescale that we've got from moving to, you know, from 2.5% to 5%, again, particularly in the context of the Americans, really not being in the place, and I'm putting this politely, that they were before in terms of defending Europe. I think the military experts are trying to tell us we really need to get our heads together and our act together, and talking about it ain't enough.
I mean, and even if there is a peace deal reached with Ukraine, that doesn't stop Putin from, and he's even said it, you know, he has ambitions, and those ambitions involve creating a greater Russia and breaking up the European Union.
Yeah, but again, you know, the American part of that equation, it was good to see in the papers this morning that they were talking about the possibility of some kind of US security guarantees for the rest of Ukraine. But, you know, if that happens, and there is a peace deal, Europe will still have to strengthen not just its resolve, but, you know, all of those practical things that I'm talking about in order to defend itself against Russia. If that's where, you know, the world is at the moment, as you say, an aggressive Putin, we don't think even if there is a deal that necessarily that's going to stick forever. And there's all these other things going on, you know, Russian subs in the North Sea, cables getting monitored, drones flying over airports all around Western Europe. You know, it's clear to see that there is a big threat there. But Europe, the rest of Europe will have to step up to the plate, and Britain will need to be part of that. And if I can go back to what I said at the beginning, that whole issue of national service might be a place that, as I say, there'll certainly be a debate about it here. I don't think it will necessarily be popular, but if that's what the country needs for its defence, maybe that's the direction of travel it will have to go in.
The thing is, John, that the world is a very different place. The country is a very different country to 80 odd years ago, let's say 85 years ago, 90 years ago. And there was, I believe, a bigger determination to fight for the country, to keep our way of life. A lot of people in this country now don't seem to value this way of life, or they can see that it's only, or it's drudgery, or it's working, or paying tax, or you know, supporting people coming over on boats. So they're questioning whether this is a country that they want to defend with the lives of their sons and daughters in the first place.
I mean, I think, you know, there's a whole bundle of issues all around all of that. I mean, you know, to take some of that on, I've been really struck in the past, couple of years, maybe it's a post-COVID phenomenon or something. I mean, if I went out the streets of my local town and said I was going to hand £100 to everybody in the street, I bet you I would get a significant minority saying, why is it not 150, and why are those people across the road getting £20?
Yeah.
I mean, we now live in a country where people ain't very satisfied with very much. Now, you can argue they may have some cause to be in that place, but that, it appears to me, where we are. You know, if you're going to take that on a macro scale and talk about, you know, whether people would then think it worth it to, you know, expend the time or even the lives of our sons and daughters, I'm sure there would be a huge reaction to that. But what's the alternative?
I mean, that is the question, because actually they're saying as well that it's not just the all of us, if this were to happen in the next 5 years, would have to sacrifice a lot, as our grandparents and great-grandparents did, with rationing, with, you know, a whole host of different things that we would have to sacrifice.
Well, the country's not ready for any. Look, one of the things I was talking about again a couple of weeks ago is that if there's a peace deal with Russia and Ukraine, you know, one of the first things that will happen is that a whole series of people in those areas that are ceded to Russia, if indeed that is part of the deal, will not want to be there. They probably not want to be in the rest of the Ukraine, what's left of it. Some people in the rest of the Ukraine may want to move as well. Now, where are they going to go? Right? What then happens to the great number of Ukrainians who are here actually on temporary leave to stay? If we end up in a situation like that, and that's yet another headache for any government in Western Europe, including our own.
Yeah, and to send Ukrainians back to Ukraine who are here on temporary visa, we'd have to be assured that Russia was going to stop where they are, and those assurances, I think, will be difficult to stand by.
Nobody's certain about any of that, and as you say, you know, everybody knows that somewhere inside his head that Putin's a great expansionist and he's a great meddler. And we see all of this from all of the warnings that we're hearing in the past couple of years, and particularly today.
Yeah, and the leader of MI6 just finally saying we're not at peace. We're in between peace and war.
Yeah, well, again, you know, part of this isn't new. The other thing that the new head of MI6 was saying today is just this issue about how power relations in the world are changing, that individuals now are becoming more powerful than the state, and that's another worrying development, particularly since those are the people who are in control not of just vast wealth, but of all the modern technologies, advanced technologies that are changing the world. So we've never been in a place that's been as uncertain as it is now, and that looks likely to get worse and continue.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because you've got people like Elon Musk who are looking to take over the technology of fighter jets and the information that goes between the jets and all of that. You start looking at oligarchs that are in control of things like that, and it's a very different world. Very different.
Yes, yep. And as I say, you know, there isn't any way back from all of this.
No.
The world is changing, and whether people get that or not, it looks as if we might have to change to live in it, to accommodate it.
Indeed. John, thank you for that. So that's what we're talking about at midnight. Are you prepared to sacrifice your sons and daughters to protect this country? Are you prepared to sacrifice anything, really, to protect this country? Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just really trying to gauge where you are on this. So do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. And I'm going to take a quick break here, John, but we'll be back in just a moment with the papers.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we have with us at this very moment John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland, to look through the front pages for tomorrow. And John, we're going to kick off with the Sun newspaper with a photograph of the 10-year-old Jewish girl called Matilda, who was the youngest of the 15 victims of the anti-Semitic bloodbath that took place in Bondi. Horrific images that we've seen from there. Everything filmed, of course, these days.
Everyone should condemn this. It's just, these issues have just become so difficult. You know, the beginning of Hanukkah, Jewish people out on a beach in Australia, and it ends up in a situation with 19 people dead. I think 40, maybe 40 people injured. It has been rightly condemned all around the world, and you know, people are saying that this is yet another manifestation of anti-Semitism, which that's grown exponentially in the past couple of years.
It's just awful, isn't it, when you look at this, because the Prime Minister there, he's coming under fire for not taking anti-Semitism seriously enough, and also the younger of the two shooters, whose names I'm not going to, I know their names, so I'm not going to give them. The younger of the two shooters was known to authorities, or at least had been highlighted by authorities back in 2019.
Yeah, again, you know, this isn't something, you know, we've seen this kind of situation before, yet, you know, it ends up in these very difficult and tragic circumstances. I was intrigued by the situation about gun laws in Australia. Yeah. I thought gun laws were pretty strict in Australia, but, you know, the father had a licence for 6 guns. And, you know, they were serious firearms that the father had a licence for. So I think they're going to look at that again. Damn. I think Albanese, the Prime Minister, has come under some criticism, partly because I think he's been pretty outspoken to a degree about his support for a two-state solution in the Middle East. However, you know, I again coming under criticism for talking about anti-Semitism and not doing anything too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, the Jewish communities around the world must be so fed up with hearing that we won't stand for anti-Semitism, and yet, you know, they're still having to get private police and private, you know, bodyguards around, you know, schools and places of worship. I mean, they must be so bored of hearing it.
No, I think that's right. I have to say, I'm bound to say, and there's been a lot of criticism for anyone who's said this kind of thing, that, you know, you can't help but link what's happening in the Middle East, in Gaza in particular, to the rise in anti-Semitism. And look, you know, as I say, everybody should condemn what happened on Bondi Beach, and it is the right thing to do. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There needs to be stronger measures taken against anti-Semitism. However, it must be said that I think anyway that if we could make some progress in terms of some kind of peace settlement in the Middle East, then that might help in situations going forward.
Yeah, I think that also what helps in this particular shooting, in this situation, is that the hero of the hour, the man that took down that gunman, took the gun off him, is called Ahmed al-Ahmed, and that has got to at least calm down any sort of, you know, object racism or anti, you know, Islamophobia, in that this hero of the day was a person who could easily have been mistaken for being one of them and killed by police. But he was, I mean, the images of him are extraordinary.
Absolutely. I saw those pictures for the first time this evening, wresting, you know, a gun, a very large gun, from the hands of one of the perpetrators. Yeah, but again, it's just how have we ended up in this place? And it's not a phenomenon that's clearly confined to Australia. We had our own situation in Manchester not so long ago. So I think there are some measures that the police could be taking, the government could be taking in relation to the protection of the Jewish community in the UK. Yeah, I think that's something that needs to happen, and it's something that gets talked about a lot.
Yeah, it does get talked about, as I was saying, but they don't seem to be actually actioning anything particularly helpful. And it must make all Jewish communities around the world feel incredibly vulnerable. There's something like that can happen.
I've been struck today by, you know, the number of commentators and the number of others who've been saying that not just in Australia, but here, that Jewish people are questioning, you know, whether they're safe enough living here and thinking of going somewhere else.
Yeah. It's absolutely tragic, it really is. So that's the Sun newspaper for tomorrow. The Times also putting some images of the murdered, a few of the murdered victims. Not all of the murdered victims have been named at this stage, it's worth saying. Bondi terror gunman was on a watch list. So that will have to be looked at in the same way that the Southport killer was known as well to authorities. And it just beggars belief, you know, why have these watch lists? Why have these, you know, organisations that are meant to prevent this kind of thing? If nothing's done with that, we are all let down by those organisations, right?
Look, again, you're absolutely right. I think these situations are just so difficult, but, you know, I go back to this point all the time. We talk about them a lot, yet we seem unable to prevent, you know, incidences like this. And in the longer term, you know, the government needs to be able to take some kind of tougher measures round about it. I'm not particularly sure what those are. I know the government's talking about, you know, arresting more people in terms of the speech, the hate speech, they would say, that is used in demonstrations and the like, or maybe curbing demonstrations. I don't know that that's particularly productive, to be honest, right? But, you know, the government needs to look very, very carefully about what it wants to do in this whole front.
Yeah, there has to be more action and less talking, in my view. Talking of action and no talking, the doctors' strike is going ahead despite flu fears. I cannot believe that the doctors are taking a single person with them on this, right? The public will not be impressed by this decision.
I'm completely gobsmacked by this story. You know, the doctors were given, what, 29% in a 2-year pay deal. Was it last year?
Yeah, it was only last year.
Absolutely astonishing that they should be coming back and asking for 26%. You know, it's even more astonishing that doctors should be going on strike at Christmas when there's a serious flu situation in the country, I have to say. And, you know, there's not many people particularly agree an awful lot with the words of the Prime Minister. But when he said today, and that was West Street, and when he said today that the doctors were being self-indulgent, irresponsible and dangerous, it seemed to me
it's hard to argue with, right?
That was not unreasonable. You know, what if the government ends up giving into this, right, at the beginning of the season of pay deals? You know, all it does is encourage lots more people to come back. So Starmer said today there's no more money. I think it's in the Telegraph, there's a small a small nib in the front page of the Telegraph saying that Rachel Reeves appears to be warning that next year that pay deals won't be as good as they've been. There is absolutely no way, right, that the government can give in to 26% to these doctors. And again, you know, look, we all have sympathy with people who live in, who work in the health service. Nurses in particular, I think, you know, have been deserving of any increases they've got. But these particular doctors, it may be the case, and it is the case, that they're, you know, relatively near the beginning of their career. They've been through a lot of training.
That we've paid for.
Well, that's been paid for, yeah. That's absolutely right. However, in a couple of years' time, you know, once they start to go up the tree, then they earn far more than anybody else earns, and will continue to do so for the rest of their lives. I think you're right. I have not heard a single person out there saying it's a really good idea to pay them.
No, I haven't either. And like you said, they've had 29%. They said they would come back for more. Then everybody went, yeah, well, you've had your share of the cookie. But you know, all it's going to take is for people to die. And you know, we don't see doctors in that view. We think they're more sacrificial than that, don't we? That they're there because they have a wish to save lives, not put them in jeopardy by standing outside a hospital.
Well, perish the thought that this is going to happen, that as a result of this kind of action that people are going to pass away. And if it's going to happen, it's 5 days that it's going to go on for. You know,
it's the knock-on effect, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the 5 days are bad enough, but then you've got surgeries being delayed, then you've got double bubble surgeries, you've got people who are having test results, you've got all of those things that are being delayed. It's cruel.
Yeah, look, I can't disagree with a single word of that. I think what the Prime Minister's now trying to do is encourage some junior doctors to go in and work anyway, because he does see this as being particularly irresponsible.
Yeah, well, there's strong words, but whether it'll actually feed through tracks. What they'll do is they'll go back and work on agency pay, which is going to cost us, you know, £3 a shift or whatever it is. I don't know. Let's take a quick break, John, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. With me is John Boothman, who is a political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. The Mirror this morning, tomorrow morning, sorry, is this story. I just cannot get my head around this Liverpool story. This is a 12-year-old boy who's spoken of the terror that he felt as he was mown down by the parade rampage driver, Paul Doyle. Doyle, 54 years old, is set to face his sentence tomorrow. But we've been hearing a lot of witness statements through the day today. I honestly, I cannot understand this story at all. I mean, it seems like Doyle lost his temper.
Yeah, I mean, the court, I'm reading in one of the papers saying that the court was shown dash cam footage of him shouting at the crowd. He drove through the streets of Liverpool, a celebration by fans, I think about them winning the league.
Yeah.
Mown down, 100 people were knocked down and injured by this individual who was sitting in his car shouting at them I think again it was described in court as a selfish rage, and you know, it'll be interesting to see what he gets sentenced with tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is a hugely serious incident. It's ruined, I think, the lives of a few people. Thankfully, you know, no one died, and you know, injuring 100 people, it could have been.
It could have been so much worse.
Tragedy.
But it's so difficult to get your head around this, because when this story first broke, and certainly the next day, everyone was saying, well, he was an ex-soldier and he was a nice guy and he was a good neighbour and all of this kind of thing. There was shock on all of that. And he then, to begin with, tried to say that, you know, he lost control of the vehicle, or he gave lots and lots of excuses, all of which turned out to be provably wrong. He finally copped to it, and there doesn't seem to be any mitigation offered in this. So just to lose your temper I just cannot fathom how somebody can do that.
Well, he lost control of himself, not just losing. Well, I don't know that he lost control of the vehicle at all. He just ploughed on regardless, and with so many victims of that. Yeah, I think he's been charged with, is it reckless driving, dangerous driving? Now, I don't know what the maximum penalty for that is, but again, I'll look with some interest tomorrow to see exactly what his sentence is. Yeah,
that's going to be interesting, because the sentence probably won't quite match what we're looking at and the carnage that happened. The other story on the front page of the Mirror is a big picture there of Sir Cliff Richard, appeared on Good Morning Britain yesterday, talking about his cancer battle. So yet another prominent, well-known person talking about prostate cancer.
Yeah, and what's interesting about his story is that I think he wants to, having watched the King in the past couple of days, deploy the King in the fight against cancer, which is, I think, an interesting kind of aspect. I mean, I was interested. What age is Cliff Richard?
He is 85.
85, right. Again, I think there are so many men in this kind of situation. I think, in fact, lots of younger men. Yeah. And, you know, we've had that decision in the last couple of weeks not to have a national screening programme for prostate cancer. I think that's something a lot of people disagree with, but clearly it's something that the experts are agreed upon, and it's just been, you know, such a big issue. Cliff Richard being the latest personality to talk about it.
Chris Hoy as well.
Chris Hoy, yep.
And I think it's widely accepted now that, although it's never been confirmed, that will be the cancer that our King was being treated for. I don't think he's actually said it, has he?
No, I don't think so.
But I think that's been widely accepted, and certainly Giles Brandreth this morning, who knows the King quite well, they're quite good friends, did sort of suggest that was the case. But it's what's interesting is that it's awareness as well. I mean, my son came to see me the other night, and he's 28, and I said to him, I said, look, I might not be around when you're in your 40s, but you need to get, because Granddad died of prostate cancer, so it's like you need to. And he was going, Mum, shut up. And I said, no, I'm just saying now, I'm telling you now that because of Granddad, you need to get checked in your 40s. And anybody of colour, any men, black men, they've got to be checked as well early. It's much more prominent in the black community. So I wonder if awareness will actually do the job, a better job, if you like, than a screening programme that at the moment the tests are not accurate either way.
Well, I think it has already. I mean, I think certainly the highlighting of these, you know, cases of famous personalities has, you know, had a beneficial
Definitely.
result. There's
I
a lot
do.
more people, and the test, you know, look, I mean, without wishing, I mean, it's pretty late at night. You know, you no longer need to get somebody sticking their finger up your bum. You just need to go and
And that's
get a
what a
blood
lot of
test.
guys of a certain age are really worried
Sure,
about. Yeah.
sure, absolutely. It's much easier to get that. I think you're right. I think that, you know, there are some issues about suggestion that a lot or some of these tests can be false positives and the like. But I suspect that, you know, that very action, you know, which comes as the result of this publicity, is saving a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, apparently after the King said what he said, that people are looking at screening sites and things like that and opting for those things, those tests, went sky high, which is all to the good.
Yeah, simple PSA test. It's just a blood test,
Yeah.
and they take it from there.
And you can ask from the age of 60.
Yep.
If there's nothing in your family, you can ask for that to happen. I think it's 50. Sorry, it's 50. You can demand that at your GP. You can ask for that to actually happen. And if you're, you know, if you've got anybody in the family, or if you are a person of colour, man of colour, you can go earlier. 45.
Look, GPs are a lot more aware now of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, anybody who is going along for any kind of MOT or whatever with a GP, the GP will suggest that to people. It's not. It's nurses that carry these things out now.
Yeah.
It's, you know, nurse practitioners certainly in Scotland take those blood tests. You get the result back in a couple of weeks, and if there's anything else has to happen, you know, I think you get pretty quickly referred.
Yeah, very quickly. I've got a friend going through it at the moment, and they've been really quite speedy.
Yeah, people can you would get a scan after that. If there's an issue with that, then it's a biopsy, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, they're really good. I have to say, they've been amazing. Let's have a look at The Guardian. Tears, flowers and silence. Sydney unites in grief after Bondi horror. Yeah, they're going to feel that shock for quite some time. Hopes for a breakthrough in Ukraine peace talks, but of course the elephant in the room wasn't in the room, and that is Putin.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the hope that's come in that story is the thing that I mentioned earlier on, which is just this idea that if there is some kind of security guarantee for the Ukraine, then it might be something that would lead to them having some kind of acceptance of losing territory. That seems to be, I think, the basis of it. But, you know, let's see where this story goes, what way Donald Trump wakes up in the morning, and
exactly.
what side of the bed he's on in terms of, you know, who he wants to say something about tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that, the top corner of The Guardian, talking about Rob Reiner, the one of the greatest filmmakers that the world's ever seen. And I mean, Princess Bride is my go-to movie if I'm feeling a bit blue. I think it's wonderful. He and his wife had their throats cut. And we know that there's been an arrest made. But did you see the tweet that Donald Trump put out?
Yeah, which started
what the
off...
hell?
Yeah, I'm basically suggesting that...
He deserved it.
He was a Trump hater.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, quite perverse.
But one of the most disgusting, and I've got a list of disgusting things that Trump has said and done, but that really nuzzles its way right to the top. Absolutely disgusting. 2 people murdered in their own home. You know, there's already been an arrest made, you know, potentially by a member of their own family. And he's talking about Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, what an absolute pig.
Well, Trump derangement syndrome is an interesting description.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was absolutely despicable and disgusting, but there you go. The Daily Mail, drivers wrongly fined in speed camera scandal. Tens of thousands have speeding cases scrapped after it revealed 40% of cameras on motorways and A roads had a fault.
Again, another interesting story, you know, 30,000 cases to be scrapped, suggesting that the government may face compensation claims as a result of this. I think because there was a fault in the speed camera systems, which has led to this. You know, I think this is a really, really good story. I think it's the kind of story people will be interested in. But, you know, that's 40% of devices affected. I mean,
that's a lot, right? I mean, that's not good.
Yeah, yeah.
Outrageous. More than 36,000 speeding cases have been axed so far. Blimey. Can you imagine the stress of trying to fight that as well, knowing that you didn't and it's telling you that you did, and all of that nonsense? Right, the paper. MI6 chief, Globe's tech giants are seizing power from politicians. This is one of the greatest threats to global security at the moment, is people like Musk taking over the flight systems of aircraft and satellites.
Look, it's just this whole thing that we've seen in the past few years, and you know, she puts it quite well. She said that our world is being remade by advanced technology that used to be the stuff of science fiction. I mean, all of my social media in the past couple of weeks is full of either Chinese or Tesla robots.
Yeah.
You know, and it all looks pretty benign. You know, these things are going to make you cups of coffee. They're going to march around the house and do your hoovering and stuff. And then, of course, there's a whole other side to it, which you then see pictures of, you know, robot dogs and robot humanoids, right, preparing for war.
Yeah. But you've also got companies like Palantir taking control of data. You know, and that people are just going, oh, well, it's only data, it's out there anyway. But you've got it all in the hands of one company and one very rich person at the head of Palantir, who then has more power than governments do. And I think that's the point as well. It's not just what AI is doing, it's these oligarchs who are, you know, you look at Musk with SpaceX and all the other deals that he's done for American security companies and American defense companies as well. It's going to be up to Musk who fires a missile, not up to a government, not up to a president.
It's also it's the concentration of all of that power, all of that wealth, even the concentration of, you know, the world's resources. Look at all these deals that Trump and people are making round about rare earth minerals, and so on and so forth. Again, you know, if we think it's going to be difficult for politicians to be able to deal with the whole defence situation that the new head of MI6 is pointing out today, it's even more difficult to be able to understand, contain, and somehow or other, you know, really put some kind of frameworks or safeguards around all these things that we're talking about, as far as advanced technology go.
That's what those monopolies commissions were all about, right? Preventing this you know, amount of power being in the hands of one person. Can you imagine the data that Palantir has, and the data that they now want to take from British people who just want to go there on holiday? Your date of birth, your social security, your DNA, your family's phone numbers, your last 5 years of social media, your last 10 years of emails, all of those things just to go on holiday. Where's that information going to go?
It probably means lots of people won't go to America.
No, well, I hope they're sensible enough to go stuff that. I'm not going. Let's take a quick break, John, and we'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and John Boothman is with me, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. The Daily Express has gone with a left of field, if you excuse the pun, story. PM warned farm owners are considering suicide before April's inheritance tax raid. These are older farmers who may be a little unwell. They're considering killing themselves so they can avoid this cruel tax, and yet the government is still refusing to drop it.
But this is an older story, to be fair, which has, come back, maybe, because of the time of year. It's clear to me, I think, that the government isn't going to change its mind on this issue. It's going to stick to its guns. Now, again, there's a counter view which would say, why should farmers be treated any differently from anyone else in the population? But obviously that's something that the farming community won't have any truck with. The other thing that I find interesting about this, and I don't have any numbers, but this is an issue about farmers committing suicide. I think, from memory, I've come across lots of stories in the past that more farmers are more prone to commit suicide than other occupations in the general population. And I think part of that is obviously, just to do with, the fact that it's a very, very hard and difficult life that farmers lead. And again, I think, you are subject to so many different factors in terms of, even the weather. Affects what happens, what goes on in farms, and it can't be easy for a lot of farmers living the existence that they do.
No, and I do think that farmers should be treated different to the rest of the population, because we rely on farmers to hand down their farms to future generations who then farm for us. And if we're looking at a future where we're going to be a bit more isolated, or there could be problems with delivery of foods, given Vladimir Putin in the state of the world, we need our farmers more than ever. I say leave them alone.
Yeah, well,
let them pass their farms on.
Yeah, look, people forget, that this is a real backbone of the country.
Absolutely.
And it's something that we are so used to walking into a supermarket and everything's there for us, whether it comes from farms here or elsewhere, that actually we don't think about it an awful lot. But I think the farmers themselves were taken a great deal by surprise. When the Labour government introduced this in the budget, I think last year, that's something, of course, that a road that the Tories would never have gone down.
Yeah, and also, the wealth that they're talking about is in now. This is the problem, is it's not just the land and the farm, which often doesn't exceed that level of $1 million, but it is the equipment that they use, a combine harvester and a tractor. These are not cheap to buy, and that's what tips them over this inheritance. So what are they going to do? Sell a combine harvester or sell a bunch of sheep? That's the whole reason that they're there. I think it's very short-sighted. I've got no skin in the game. Obviously, I'm not a farmer, but there you go. There was a story that I wanted to talk to you about. Where did I see this? Because I wondered if it was you. Here we go. Unfortunately, we don't have the whole story, but I just love the headline. It's on the Telegraph, top flag. I raised a 65-stone grizzly bear in Scotland.
So this is...
what is that story?
Well, there's a documentary, I think, has just been made about, if I'm right, about a guy called Andy Robbins, who was a wrestler in Scotland, and he really kind of rescued this big brown bear, and he used to take it round places in Scotland. The famous story in relation, I think I'm talking about the right story, I've not seen the inside of the Telegraph, was that the bear escaped and spent, I think it was a good few weeks, it disappeared. It was roaming around the Western Isles, the Highlands of Scotland and the Western Isles, right? It became, I'm trying to think which, I think maybe in the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken. But what I do know is that there's a television documentary, certainly in Scotland, around about the life of this bear, right? So this guy was a wrestler. You used to see pictures of him wrestling this big brown bear. He was a big bloke himself. But him and his wife, as I say, brought this, basically looked after this bear, brought it up. But the escape story was the thing that kind of romanticised the whole thing.
I mean, were there ever bears in Scotland? I mean, it seems like the kind of place there would be.
I think maybe sometime in the long and distant past, but I couldn't swear to that. I can remember, now what was that Disney film that was made? There was a Disney film made where a whole series of Scottish actors were in. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of it.
Was it Brave?
No, it might be about a young sort of woman with
it was Brave.
Red hair. I think there was bears in that.
Oh, there were bears. See that? Well, that's all the proof we need.
But I think they were maybe just made up bears. If you see what I mean.
No, I think that's all the proof we need. If it's in a Disney film, it's true.
It must be true.
I just love that headline. I just had to use it. I raised a 65-stone grizzly bear in Scotland. Let's have a look at the Daily Star for tomorrow. Right, yes. This is about the swearing that's the parade rampage horror with images there of that car. And it's really hard to fathom, isn't it, until you see that image, actually, how he literally did just drive into the crowd, into a very packed crowd.
Yeah, well, this is the dashcam footage that I think was shown in court. I mean, you just can't get your head around it, can you?
No, I can't.
A packed street, I think it was Dale Street in Liverpool, a packed street, people celebrating in the street, and a car deliberately ploughs into them, and most people do. It's like something from a bad movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is no wonder that people thought it was a terror attack, right? That's exactly what people thought it was. And there was one brave guy, I think, who broke into the back seat and put the car into park. So it must have been an automatic. So he put the car into park, and Doyle was still pressing the accelerator at that point, from what I was reading from the transcripts, right? It's just absolutely horrific. What I mean, I honestly just can't get my head around it. The Independent is going with, there's a great, wonderful photograph on the front there of Ahmed Al-Ahmed, the father of two, who was injured tackling one of the Sydney Hanukkah terrorist gunman. He said, Bondi Beach hero said, I went to save lives and I'd do it again. And he was there by accident. He'd just gone with a mate to go and have a coffee at Bondi.
Yeah. I mean, look, you know, funnily enough, I was looking earlier on at this particular story and this particular guy, and it brought to mind there are so many stories around these horrible and tragic incidents. The railway guard on the train. Oh, yeah. The railway employee in the train. Yeah. I think from Nottingham, I think he was a Nottingham Forest supporter, where, his intervention clearly saved an awful lot of lives as well.
And there was the London Bridge attack, wasn't there, where somebody grabbed a narwhal horn, I think it is, off the big the narwhal fish, and again that sort of heroism.
Yep.
And it really is extraordinary to think how. I always sort of think, what would I do in that situation? Because most people would run in the other direction, of course, and that's what many people did. But the thought of actually being that person
that puts themselves in harm's way in order to save other people. I mean, incredibly brave. Absolutely incredibly brave.
Incredibly brave. I mean, 43 years old. Apparently he's undergoing, when I was talking to Australia earlier, they were saying he's back in surgery because he's got to have quite a few surgeries to remove bullets and things. But What an absolute hero, really. Can't be understated, it really can't. So let's have a look and see what else we've got. Oh, there's one of your stories here, that the US is to bench a $31 billion tech prosperity deal.
You know, we heard a few months ago about how how things were going really well in the US trade deal.
Yeah.
You know, Trump came here for amid great fanfare. He came up here and he opened the golf course. He then came back last September and was in Windsor with the King. Everything was going swimmingly well. You know, since then there's been some kind of deal about pharmaceuticals in the health service, which has not looked advantageous to us. But one of the bright lights in all of this was there was a massive big tech deal announced by the government, I think £31 billion. And now we're hearing that there seems to be some doubt about that. Now, the British authorities are trying to play this down by suggesting that, you know, this is just, you know, hardball negotiating by the American negotiators, trying to downplay it all. But, you know, the Americans appear to be saying they're unhappy about other aspects of, you know, trade deals, you know, a new digital tax, for example, on American tech companies.
Yeah, I just think that
about food safety.
Whatever deals that are coming out of America, we've got to take with a pinch of salt, because we don't know what mood Trump's going to be in to finalise it, if it ever gets done. John, thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you. If I don't see you before Christmas, have a wonderful time. Right, coming up next, it's you with Talkback.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. This is Petrie here with you for the next hour, and this is your hour. This is a full hour of just you and me talking, so I'm hoping that you'll be part of the conversation. The number you're going to need is 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at a national rate, but we do call you straight back, and you can also message me if you put the word talk and then your message to 87222. What we're talking about is the sort of upturn in rhetoric about the potential, the possibility of a war happening in Europe at the behest of Vladimir Putin. And we've been told now by Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton that more families will know what sacrifice for our nation means. He said Britain must be ready to sacrifice its sons and daughters to defend itself from Russia. He's the chief of the defence staff. He also echoed the French general Fabien Mandon, who sparked fury across the Channel last month by saying France lacked the will to lose its children. He said his countrymen were lacking the strength of spirit to accept suffering in order to protect who we are. He also said if our country falters because it's not prepared to accept, let's be honest, to lose its children, to suffer economically because defence production will take precedence, then we are at risk. This was echoed by the Air Chief Marshal. He said sons and daughters, colleagues, veterans will all have a role to play, to build, to serve, and if necessary, to fight. He said that Britain faced the same threat as Germany, but noted that Berlin had brought in national service and was outspending Britain on defence. Germany and France have now brought in a form of national service. It is currently voluntary, but of course, as we know with Germany, that has opened the door now to the potential for it not being a voluntary conscription to do national service. So the bombshell comments came after MI6 declared that we're already in a shadow war with Russia, that we're somewhere between peace and war in a grey area. We are operating in that space now. We've also been told by Mark Rutte, who's the head of NATO, that we must be prepared to suffer the same as our great-grandparents and our grandparents suffered in terms of the First and the Second World War. So definitely the rhetoric has ramped up, if not our defence spending. Plans are being made, but they're very slow at this point, and we're not very quick at accepting it here in this country, that actually the 80 years of relative peace that we've seen could at some point be coming to an end, and we need to be ready for it. But the burning question for me is hearing these words being spoken, not just in France, but here as well. And obviously, as we are part of NATO, if anything happened to anyone in NATO, we would leap to their defence, which would put us in the firing line. That's the whole point of NATO, hit strike one, strike all, unless, of course, you are Donald Trump. Are we prepared to sacrifice for this country? And moreover, are you prepared to sacrifice your sons and your daughters to defend our way of life? Now, this isn't imminent. I don't want anyone to be going, oh my God, this is tomorrow. But we're sort of looking, the Europeans who have all this military information, right? They have all this, and MI6 has all this information that we do not have. We do not see the intelligence that they see. They're talking 5 years, 5 to 10 years. Now, it could be that we manage to draw a line under it and it doesn't happen. Let's hope. But I'm just interested as to, are we prepared to sacrifice in order to keep our way of life? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Les has called from Cheshire. Morning, Les.
Morning. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good. Are you ready for Christmas yet? Have you done all your shopping?
It comes around so quick.
I know, doesn't it? I'm not ready. I'm definitely not ready. So what do you make of this, Les? I mean, you can't help but think we're in a different world now than we were, 85 years ago.
Well, let me just say one thing, right? My father was born in 1911.
Right.
When the Second World War broke out in 1935, he wasn't eligible to actually go and take up arms in order to defend the country. However, he was recruited as a PTE instructor.
Right.
Now, he instructed, obviously, the new recruits in order for them to prepare for war. However, the millions of people that was killed during the Second World War, he has always said to me, God rest his soul, that he wished he'd never, ever actually prepared them for war. Now,
he must have felt some responsibility, perhaps.
Exactly. And the reason why he couldn't be enrolled as a soldier is because he was deaf in one ear, because he worked in industries that made him deaf. So that's why they won't allow him to actually get involved in it, other than being a PET instructor. But what I'm seeing today is that there's a lot of people, and especially young people out there, that have no realization of what might be going on and how they would defend their country.
Yeah,
because it takes a lot of guts to actually pick up a gun and kill someone.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of young people, I think, will be conscientious objectors, if that's the right word.
It is, yep.
And I think there's a lot of other people who have served in the war who've got PTSD. A lot of people that are currently on our streets who are veterans that would not enroll to serve in a war. So, I mean, for myself, I'm 66, so I'm recently retired. The thing is that I would probably take up arms if that was the case, because I've never been put in that situation. But there's a lot of other people, and I mean a lot of other people, that would not do so. And I would be in a minority in doing so.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And I think that because we've had 80 years, right, of relative peace. I mean, there was a Cold War up until 35 years ago or whatever. But so those of us who are a bit older, like you and me, we would have done the drill at school where you had to hide under a desk, right? Do you remember that? And stuff like that. But basically, we've had this peace. So I think a lot of young people don't understand. They've got no connection. Their parents didn't have anything to do with it. Maybe their grandparents were right at the tail end of it. But you know what I mean? So we've been so far away from a war and having something to fight for that nobody understands it, really.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, obviously, the people that are taking to the street demonstrating for Gaza, demonstrating for Israel, demonstrating for anything that's going on in the world in regard.
Yeah, they wouldn't fight for it, though, would they?
No, they've never experienced it,
No.
so they don't understand exactly what's going on. And I think a lot of these people need to speak to the Ukrainian people who have experienced that, who are living in this country at the moment, and ask them, what experience have you had during that war, given the fact that Russia has invaded your country and now you're over in this country or in other Western countries, having been taken in by those people who protect your rights of freedom.
Yeah, exactly that. I think you're making some excellent points, Les. We're too far away from it. A lot of people. I mean, there was a survey not long ago where a lot of kids said they would prefer a dictatorship than democracy, and you just think, what are you talking about? You know, you've only ever lived in a free country, a peaceful country, right? They've got no experience, none of what a war might look like, what it might feel like to have your freedoms taken away, what it might feel like those Ukrainians you talk about, to have their lives taken, you know, everything taken away from them. They've had to leave the country they love for safety.
Right, yeah. And do you think that after these people, well, most of these people who have the freedom of speech taken away from them because they demonstrate on the streets because they've got that freedom of that speech, if that was taken away from them, what would they think then?
Yeah. What would they? I mean, this is what I'm saying, is that they talk the talk, but would they be prepared to walk the walk? I'm with you. I don't think that they would. I think a lot of people go, well, what am I fighting for? This country's a mess. You know, a lot of people would think that.
Yeah, and I have to say, but given the fact that I'm 66, I never took up arms or never served in the army whatsoever, if somebody was threatening my country or threatening my way of life, then I would certainly take up arms and I would put myself in front.
Yeah, and I wonder if that is because you were that connected to your dad, so you lived his experience. You know,
my grandfather, my father's father, he was in the First World War.
Yeah, and
he was cannon fodder.
Yeah. So at our sort of ages, we have that connection to the war and what war looks like and what it, you know, we may not have been alive for it, we may not have seen it, but there is still a connection, right, through family and what they went through.
But the main point is that it's all about being a democratic nation, being a country which we have freedom, and we fought for that freedom.
Yeah, and they're slowly being taken away from us anyway, but yeah.
And if it's going to be taken away from us, then we have to defend that, whatever the means may be.
Yeah, I agree. And I wouldn't want to live in a world that wasn't pretty much like this one, right? What's the point?
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, unless it's about my age, and then no.
Yeah. Would you yourself take up arms?
Would I? Yes.
Yeah. You would?
I would.
Right. Do you agree with national conscription?
I still think it should be voluntary at this stage. Or you have a conscription service that says if you're not in employment or in college or whatever, then go and do 6 months military work.
Well, that's actually 2 years, but if people are not in work and they can get training and also a career based on being in the army, because they can get a career and being in the army.
It's amazing. It's an amazing job to do, but they would, you know, they'd have to be prepared to go on the front lines. And I'm, you know, I've got a son, and I would take up arms, but I wouldn't want my son to have to.
Well, I put myself at the side of you because I'm one of the same.
Well, you and I'll have to join Dad's and Mum's army, won't we?
Well, Dad's army, Mum's army, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll fight by your side, Les. Yeah. I'll be there. I'm quite tough as well.
Yeah, it's just not a joke, is it?
No.
It's something that's coming around the corner. Either way, it's going to be from a different country that we're going to be infiltrated by, or it's going to be within our own country. And we need to make a stand either way.
Yeah, and we've got China as well, less likely, but Iran. That we must never forget that little issue as well coming up. But Les, great to talk to you. I agree with an awful lot of what you were saying there. Completely agree. Right, I'm going to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good morning to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie, and this is your hour. This is Talkback, and this is your opportunity to have your say. And I don't think there's any more important thing to have your say about, actually, than this, and that is that Britain must be ready to sacrifice its sons and daughters to defend itself from Russia. The Chief of the Defence Staff has warned. These warnings have gone out also in other European countries, in France and in Germany particularly, where they have now got national service back on the books. It is voluntary at this stage, but if not enough people volunteer, then, at least in Germany I know for sure, that they would then compel young people to join up. So I wonder if we're going to be looking at something like that here, national service here. Do you think that is such a terrible idea? I suppose we've got a youth unemployment issue, haven't we? And we've got 40,000 migrants that came over. Maybe they could do some national service. This is just this year, maybe. I don't know. Train them to be in the British military. Why not? Let them pay back to the country they want to live in. But do you think that you would be prepared to? What would you be prepared to sacrifice to maintain this way of life? Because we're being told, not just European countries, but the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, who I've got no respect for after he practically tongue-kissed Donald Trump. That we've got to be ready to sacrifice, like our grandparents did and our great-grandparents did, alluding to the First and the Second World War. So the rhetoric is definitely hotting up. There is concern that Russia cannot be contained, that Putin will not stop, even if there is a peace deal, that he will not stop, and that we've got about 5 years to get this sorted, or get him sorted, or whatever plans that they have to stop it from happening in the first place. But if they don't happen, then we've got about 5 years, and Britain at the moment is looking at rearming in about 10 years' time. So what sacrifices would you be prepared to make for this country, and would you sacrifice your kids for the defence of Britain? 0344499 1000. Ernie said, I'd let my children fight to defend our country as long as they're fighting alongside the politicians' children. I wouldn't allow them to attack another country for political reasons, though. And that says Ernie. No, it would only be in the defence of Britain, I presume. Gary says, I don't have kids and I'd be too old to fight or join up as I've just crept over the age of 50. I definitely do my bit in whatever way possible I could. We all have to do our bit. However, respective governments have left us as easy targets. Yeah, they'll be all right. They've got bunkers. Their kids won't serve. They'll be doing something else. And then when the absolute poop hits the fan, then they'll all be underground in a bunker. There won't be space for us though, Gary, I can promise you that. Mind you, the idea of being stuck in a bunker with that lot, ooh, no thanks. Right, let's go to your calls now. And Mike is in Wiltshire. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Petrie. Before I start, I'd like to wish everybody a very happy Christmas.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much.
The reason I'm phoning is really to do with the threat of the Russians.
Yeah.
I think they'd be making a big mistake if they were to declare war on us. For a start, we're part of NATO, and also an awful lot of their frontline troops have been killed, so they're probably just using cannon fodder at the moment. And also their equipment, you know, they've lost so much equipment that, I mean, for instance, they're using old Soviet-style tanks now, apparently.
Yeah, I hear all of that, but there is a case where that although a lot of their experienced soldiers have been killed, we know that, but they've also pulled a lot of those back and replaced them with the cannon fodder that you're talking about. But even those cannon fodder, they are combat hardened, right? They are getting there. And what we're talking about is what if Putin agrees to a peace deal, in my view, it is so he can put his troops back, get them trained, rebuild, restock and rearm and be ready in 5 years' time. He needs that break. He needs a bit of a break. He's not ready right now.
The Ukrainians are attacking their oil installations at the moment. I mean, that's their bread and butter, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but unfortunately, they're all over Russia. I mean, Russia is vast, right? I mean, it is.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
And so they're hidden all over the place. Russia shouldn't be underestimated. I mean, Russia under Putin shouldn't be underestimated. And he's now spending, I think, almost the whole of GDP from Russia is being spent in defence building. Why is he doing that if it's going to end in Ukraine? You know, those are the questions we need to be asking. Well,
I really think if he's going to declare war on someone, it's going to be a weaker nation than us. I mean, I know he's been making cyber attacks.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that for a long time, and also testing our borders.
Yeah, they've been testing borders.
The RAF are going up there, checking them out every now and then when they go a bit close to our borders, don't they?
Yeah, and also they're trying to undermine Britain with the whole illegal migration thing. They're supporting the gangs. They're trying to do it from inside and from outside.
Yeah, I'll go along with that.
Yeah, and they're also, funding far-right parties and not only with money but with information. Donald Trump's now said he's going to join in with that because he's, says he's worried for the future of Europe, so he needs to be, supporting groups that more align with him. Russia now is saying that they're really thrilled with America's new national security strategy because it aligns with what Russia sees. We're in the poop. I
think we do need some form of national service. So,
do you?
Well, we've got loads of empty shop units everywhere throughout the UK. Do you remember the old army recruitment centres we used to have?
Yeah.
Bring them back.
Yeah, that's a good idea because I think it's Serco that's doing the recruitment now.
They're into everything, aren't they?
It's a private company that's doing.
Oh, I know. I used to do a bit of business with Serco.
It's absolutely ludicrous. They've given it to a private company to make profit out of it, and they're failing massively. So bring back the recruitment. But national service. I mean, let's have a look at this for a minute because we've got 1 million young people not in education and claiming benefits.
Yeah.
Can we force them to do national service?
I really don't know. But I mean, if you look at the Finnish government, their kids, their national service is part of their education.
It's part of the deal. Yeah.
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 And they're right at the border with the Russians, aren't they?
Well, that's why. They've always been prepared. It's like all of those Eastern European countries and the Nordic countries, they're all really quite switched on and they pay quite a lot of money in defence as well. And look at Poland. Poland's now upped its defence spending and recruitment. They are convinced, and they're not doing that for no reason.
Behind a bit, aren't we? We do need to spend a lot more on defence.
Yeah, and instead they gave £15 billion to welfare.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Absolute madness. I don't understand it. What do you think is worth sacrificing for Britain?
Sorry, say that again?
What would you sacrifice for Britain?
Well, I'm retired now, but I wouldn't be able to go out and fight on the front line, but I'd do my bit. I'd be quite happy to do my bit in behind the lines.
Yeah, I'd go and work in an arms factory or something.
Whatever, yeah, I'd do that. And quite a few people that I know would do the same as well.
But again, I wonder if that is the older generation, and I'm including myself in that, that we've got more of a connection to that fight for our survival, and young people just don't have any connection to it at all.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest problems is loyalty, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pride in the nation.
Yeah, and there is none, or that I can see anyway.
Yeah.
I can't see us persuading our young people to pick up a gun and go and fight.
Well, the thing is, if some of them aren't prepared to do that, they won't have a country to live in, will they?
Yeah, but I don't think they understand what that means. Right? I don't think. Yeah, I think. Well, what could is it worse to live under a Russian dictator? I don't know. Is it? It's that.
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't want to live in a dictatorship.
No, me either. Absolutely not. I'd fight to the death to defend democracy, even though it's not.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not perfect, but it's the best we've got, right? It's definitely not perfect. Listen, Mike, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for calling in. Mike in Wiltshire there. Look, we are a nuclear country, although our nuclear stock is getting a bit tatty around the edges, but we are a nuclear power. And there is mutually assured destruction, right? You fire one missile, we'll fire two, and you'll fire three, and then we're all dead, right? So that's what happened. That's why we have nuclear deterrence to make sure that there isn't that. But, and I always come back to this, we're talking about Putin, who's an old man, who hasn't got long to live. I mean, he was overheard talking to the North Korean Kim Jong-un on a hot mic thing, talking about, exchanging all of their organs so they can live longer, right? They've obviously got body doubles somewhere that they're going to, like some, James Bond villain, and they're going to, replace organs so that they live longer. But they are going to die one day. And Putin strikes me as the kind of guy that would go, well, I'm going to die, so might as well take the world with me. I mean, he's an old man. What's he got to live for? He might as well kill us all. That's the one thing I come back to when everybody says, oh, it's mutually assured destruction. I don't think he cares. And he's got a bunker. So, and you haven't, and I haven't. So that's what I always come back to. It just comes back to the basic level of this man's ego. And Kim Jong-un's the same, and Trump's the same. It's their ego above everything. Well, if I've got to go, I might as well take you with me. I know it's basic, but that's where my mind goes. Right, I've got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment to take more of your calls.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and this is Talk Back with me, Petrie. And we are talking at the moment about the sacrifices that we may be asked to make to keep our way of life. We're being warned now that Britain must be ready to sacrifice its sons and daughters to defend itself from Russia. This is the Chief of the Defence Staff's warning. He said more families will know what sacrifice for our nation means. Scary words. Carol is in Manchester. Morning, Carol. How are you?
Oh, good morning. Good morning. Absolutely fantastic programme.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And this one is definitely, a lot of them are close to me out, but this one is. From 1945 to 1960, we had 15 years of people, right, literally. It weren't 80 years of peace. It was within that 15 years to 1960, and that's 1960. People then literally felt at ease, started coming into the 60s, we had the 70s, and we've had a fantastic life, absolutely amazing life. Now, the question is, would you sacrifice your daughter or your son? Would I-L, and I'm sorry for the language there, would I-L, literally, no way on this form or any way, would I sacrifice my son or my two girls, right, regarding with a war? Because it starts at the end of the day, like I've listened to what you've said and other people have said tonight, and that is like, would the president or would the prime minister have his children battling like Putin with his Russian?
No, it's
soldiers?
old men start the wars for young men to die in. I can't remember who said that. But that is the truth of it. It's these old men with their stupid egos.
Exactly.
And they start the wars, and then they sit back in their cosy, bunkers or hundreds of miles from a front line and just watch it all play out like a game.
They start the wars.
Yeah, they start them.
They cannot get round a table regarding, like you said about Putin, and it is dangerous that this man, right, is not a full shilling. Right, at the end of the day. But I'm hoping that his government around him, right, will probably know, and I'm sure some of them will know that it's not a full shilling. Just like some people around other governments in the world know that they're not a full shilling. So we sometimes have that protection with it. Do you think I would send I would send me out, like you said?
I'd fight. Yeah, but I wouldn't send my son.
I would fight. You know why? Because I'm used to it. Because my granddad, who was in the Second World War, my brother, my stepbrother, he's just come out of the army about 5 years ago, right? He's been in the army all his life, like with it. He will literally wipe my son and said, no way on this earth are you going in the army. Because you know why? We don't appreciate the people that are looking after us in the army. Years ago, 1945, 1960, 1970, all the people, right, that were in the army were given respect. Today, who's giving respect to these people in the army?
Yeah.
We have to look upon that. And we're so woke. We are so woke. And we're so privileged. It don't matter what colour you are, what breed you are, what religion you are. In this country, we've had it so fantastic, and try to not swear, so fantastic, with it. Our poor kids now would not know what to do, like the gentleman said before.
There's no sense of hardship, is there? I mean, this is the thing, is that I don't think, like you said, we've had it so cushy, really, in this country. Honestly, it is so cushy, and we just have no concept of what real proper hardship is. And I defy anybody really to put me straight on that. proper, real hardship, you know,
and we
ration
haven't,
books.
and we have not thought about war.
No.
Because we've been so arrogant. We were arrogant regarding how safe we are, how proper we are. We talk about nuclear war or whatever. You know, like, all right, you're guessing if that madman might do this or that madman might not. We have no procedure in this country, no organisation in this country to make sure that we're safe in a way. We're so involved with everybody else's business, right? We're not looking after us in our own country. I know we have to look after other people in the world or whatever, but your major thing is the people that live here.
Yeah, and the number one priority for any government is to protect and defend the people of this country, and that has been put on the back burner for as long as I can remember. Since the 1990s, they were, you know, disbanding regiments and amalgamating. You know, this has been going on for decades now, that they've been destroying the military and, like you said, not showing any due respect to the veterans, etc. And it's because I absolutely agree. We've become too soft. We've become comfortable. You know, our biggest thing is, it's like, it used to annoy me, feminists attacking page 3 of The Sun, right? They used to really annoy me because actually being a feminist means if those women want to do that, then as a woman I should support them.
Exactly.
But in the same time, those feminists were not fighting to defend women in Saudi Arabia or women in Afghanistan. No, that was far too difficult. That's what I'm talking about. That we get angry about the smallest things, but not about the big things.
We really, really do, and we're not looking at the bigger picture, and we're not looking at with this. Our country is Great Britain. That's what it is. It's Great Britain, and wherever the great came, you know, like it came from, probably, you know, like our ancestors, where it came from, we've lost it. We've lost it, and you can call that great. It doesn't matter.
We've just gone soft. We've gone soft. We've gone soft through years of peace.
We really do need to really sit down, have a discussion, and we really do need to literally speak to our children. We have to speak to our children and say, this could happen, this could happen. Because at the end of the day, they're not all soft kids. You know, like if you, I mean, I brought my children up with what I know that I've been brought up on. I know there's other children that haven't, because but we have to be real. We have to be real, and we have to teach them this could happen. It may not happen, but this could happen. And if you do, like you said, going under a table when there was. We need to. Our kids are not being taught anything.
They're not afraid of anything. They're not even afraid of their parents or their teachers. Or the police. They're afraid of nothing.
Would they be afraid of war? They're not afraid of certain things, right? Because they're so used to it with social media. We're so aware. But have they ever been? Would they ever be frightened of what would they do if there was a war? And that is the thing that they've never, that's what we're talking about.
They've never even considered it as a possibility. Carol, as ever, brilliant call. Thank you very much indeed. And we have become soft and arrogant and a bit kind of like entitled, really. We're entitled to this peace, but sometimes you have to fight for it. Kevin is in Hull. Hello, Kevin in Hull.
Good morning, Petrie.
Good morning. Well, there's a voice. Hello. It's even deeper than mine, which is quite something. Kevin, what about this? Would you sacrifice your kids to the country?
I would have to sacrifice them. I think my son and daughter would go running to it.
Would they? That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the way they are.
And why would they? What have you taught them about the world that would make them defend the country?
Probably because it's not worth defending. So they will do the opposite what Daddy says.
So you said don't bother, and they're going to go and fight because you said that.
To be honest, Petra, I know your background. I know your background on military, and with my son, he is definitely opposite to Dad. So I said, don't bother. This, that, and the other. I mean, I've lost friends in the Falklands. This, that, and the other.
Well, I always forget the Falklands, but that of course was a conflict that we had to fight, and there was a real worry. I seem to remember at that time that there might be conscription if that had gone on much longer.
Yes, but we didn't have help from the Americans in the satellite thing. We could have probably bloody lost it, to be honest. Sorry for swearing.
That's all right. You're okay. Why do you not think this country is worth saving?
I do think it's worth saving.
Oh, you do think it's worth saving?
I think the thing is, it's like a boat. It's with people coming in, it's too top heavy.
Yeah, I think so. Get rid of all the politicians. That's what I say.
But the thing is, at the end of the day, politicians won't fall on the sword.
No, this is what drives me nuts, Kevin.
They get a lot of money.
Yeah, this is what drives me nuts, is that they are, if there ever is a war, it's because of the failure of those people. But the people who pick up the pieces are those who had no say in it at all. You remember the peace march there was about Iraq? 1 million people took to the streets to say that was a fake war, and it turned out it was a fake war based on lies. And how many British lives were lost on the basis of lies?
Well, you're absolutely right, because I remember, probably before your time, Margaret Thatcher said on BBC Radio, we're going to take Goose Green. And Colonel H. Jones, bless him, he
died out there, didn't he?
And they actually said it before we actually attacked. So every Argentinian in the trenches, and Goose Green was a bland land. It was no rocks. There was nothing to hide behind. We had to hide behind Bergens and whatnot, and all hell broke loose. But at the end of the day, she shouldn't have done that. No,
this is what I mean, and they cause all the problems. I've been out to the Falklands, actually. It's a really interesting place, and seen some of the destruction that was left behind, some of the in Goose Green, where the boats and everything are half sunk. But there's no trees there.
No, there's
literally no trees. The
environment
environment is too young. Environmentally, it's too young for trees. So there are a couple of bushes, but trees haven't developed there yet. So there is, and it's all shale. It's an impossible landscape to fight on.
But the thing is, at the end of the day, it's because I believe, you'll probably prove me wrong, and I hate you proving me wrong, we had a bigger slice of the South Pole.
I couldn't attest to that.
Yeah. And, of course, there's oil there, but we've not discovered how to get the oil out efficiently. And I think that was the original reason we went to war with Argentina.
Because they want the Falklands back, don't they? For that reason, they want
what do the Argentinians call the Falklands?
Oh, Las Malvinas.
That's it. Yeah. And I lost a couple of friends there. I was originally born in Barrow-in-Furness. We built the Coventry, we built the Sheffield, and we built HMS Invincible. We actually built the Polaris submarine that sank the big World War II Argentinian battleship. Belgrano. So the thing is, at the end of the day, where I come from, we've had loss.
Yeah.
We've had a loss.
So we understand, and this is the thing that I think a lot of the younger people don't understand. They've never lived through that.
No. And they probably, hopefully, never will.
Hopefully never will, but there is a point at which perhaps we need to be teaching this level of history to children so that at least they are aware that it has happened and could happen again.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind that. I lost a friend when we were in Sea Cadets. His parents signed him off at 16 so he could join the Royal Navy, and my parents wouldn't. And he became a chef's, well, basically a washer-upper.
In the Navy?
He was on HMS Sheffield, and I was still at the training camp, and he said, "Kev, you got to get in. It's amazing."
Yeah.
And he was nicknamed the boy because he was only 18, and my parents wouldn't sign it. And unfortunately, he was killed. He was on night watch when the Sheffield got hit by the Exocet.
Oh my gosh!
No, but the scary thing was, he was a twin.
Right.
And his twin woke up screaming he was on fire.
Oh my gosh! You hear about
this is true. No, this is 100% true. His twin woke up in Barwick Furnace, screaming he was on fire.
Wow.
And his mother knew then, before she even got the telegram.
Wow. That's a hell of a story. Crikey, I sent shivers.
Not a story.
No, but
that is 100% true.
That is amazing.
Because my nana was distantly related to that family.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, that's great.
Yeah, and the thing was, his name was Sean Haywood, but everybody thinks of the 80s pop singer Sean Haywood.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but he wasn't. So that was that. So
yeah, you forget, don't you? I mean, there's all these stories. That is incredible. I find that really spooky. Kevin, thank you, Kevin in Hull there. I've got to take a break, but I'll be back in a sec.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and this is Petrie here with Talk Back. A couple more messages here. Traditionally, royalty joined the military in time of war. So if we must be prepared to put our children on the front line, let's see how many MPs' children would join them. Will Starmer's children be amongst the first to enlist to set an example? That's what you'd hope for, isn't it? And this is what I say. They always start the wars, but they have nothing to do with them apart from that. And they don't suffer either. I mean, I can't imagine that Churchill and that lot had any rationing that they had to particularly deal with. Can you, really? Kaz said, sacrifice my kids for Britain, not a chance, Petrie. Thankfully, I'm too old for conscription. And Lee said, this country is already lost, as is Europe, in my humble opinion. I'm sorry to say I have 2 sons in their 20s, and they are never needlessly fighting someone else's fight. And that's from Lee in Birmingham. The trouble is, Lee, it could well be our fight. Who knows? Right, let's go to the phones now. And another Kevin. We have a lot of, I don't know what you call a gaggle of Kevins. Kevin in Stoke, good morning.
Hi, Petrie, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad at all, thank you.
Good, I'm glad to hear it. Would you sacrifice your sons or daughters for Britain?
No way whatsoever. I've been listening to the conversation. A lot of good points made, a lot of strong points, a lot of points that I'd totally reiterate. Biggest issue is, first of all, point out leadership. Where is the leadership in this country that is going to lead us to fight? Well, there is no way the current leadership, I won't get into politics because we've got a different discussion now, but there is no way the leadership of our government is strong enough to fight a war.
I completely agree. And this is politics. War is politics, right? So you can't have one conversation without the other. Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't trust Starmer with a bag of grocery shopping, let alone a kid.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing is as well, leadership, we're dealing here with, okay, we have got autocratic regimes around the world, you know, whether we like it or not, but bottom line is, Putin is a gangster. The guy in charge of China is a gangster.
Yep.
Trump, I've got some positives in relation to Trump, but he's a flawed character at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Would you follow him into? I mean, he's got no idea about war because all he is a totally money-orientated person at the end of the day.
And he's a 5-time draft dodger as well. Yeah, no, I mean, but this is the thing. This is the real concern that I have as well about a war starting. Not only are we at the behest of the egos of these men, these flawed men, right? But also, a lot of companies want war to happen. A lot of oligarchs and technocrats, they make billions when a war happens. So not only the defence companies, but the communication companies, the satellite companies, you know, the real estate companies, all of them make billions from war. They're not in any hurry to stop it.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'm 64 now. I'm a grumpy old man, okay? My rose-tinted glasses, they've been put away a long time ago.
Yeah, mine too.
When I was a young man, I looked at going into the army. I looked at the Royal Signals. My father-in-law, he was a career soldier, a sergeant major in the Staffords.
Wow.
My granddad, he was a sergeant in the World War, and I didn't find out till he passed away, but he was actually a regular soldier. And he joined the army in the 1930s because there was no work down the pit.
Yeah.
So, and he got evacuated off Dunkirk.
Wow.
And he went to Burma, and my dad and my nan never saw my granddad for 5 years. So just face that now. I don't know whether I've got the strength to do that, and I certainly know my kids wouldn't be facing up to that prospect. So that's what you're looking at our previous generations.
Yeah.
What they did.
They were tough.
There will be never a generation like that again, if I'm brutally honest, Petrie.
Kevin, I completely agree with you. But I wonder if we had that generation because life was tougher back 80 years ago, right? The welfare state wasn't what it was. There was no NHS. You know, you had to be tough to survive in this country. Even, you know, before the First World War and the Second World War, you had to be tough. You know, there was, like you said, there was no going on benefits if there wasn't work down the pit. You joined the army. Right? You had to do it tough. Nobody's done it tough in this country for decades. Decades and decades. Nobody's done it tough. No one.
Absolutely. And you look at what they... I mean, at the end of the day, we all go on about we won the war. Yes, unfortunately, we were on the right side of it. But the margin by which that war was won was absolutely paper thin.
It really was. Russia could easily, if they had dealt with the you know, differently, if the Germans had dealt with the Russian front differently, that was a pivotal point when the Germans, when the Nazis decided they were going to go straight into Russia in the winter. That if they hadn't done that, if they'd waited a couple of months, you know, everything would have been different. Everything.
And let's face it, Europe itself, the countries were just toppling left, right, and centre in front of us.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and we, you know, it was. You've got to say the resilience of our generation, my granddad's generation, was phenomenal. Really.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
It was. So,
but again, I take you back to that thing that nobody has done it tough in this country for decades.
No.
Decades and decades, and you know, we forget. You know, I've lived in a world where there's always been an NHS. You know, that was brought into being after the Second World War. There was no NHS. You had to pay to see the doctor, so you didn't see the doctor. You got rickets. You know, all of those things. The world was totally different.
Yeah, you had to pay if you wanted a baby.
Yeah.
You know, my nan told me the stories about my